What's up, everyone? Today we are out here with AU5 and we're wandering around Arts District, so there might be a lot of noise, but yeah, let's see. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up. You grew up in New Jersey. What was that like?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey, in a little town called Delran, right across the river from Philadelphia. It was pretty boring. I mean, honestly, nothing too exciting. I'm an only child, so...
Oh, me too.
Nice.
It's pretty boring.
I feel like it's pretty rare, but yeah, I mean, I went to a private school for like kindergarten through 8th grade, and then I went to a public high school, and that kind of just like changed everything for me. It's kind of like a culture shock.
I know you started like listening to or being interested in music at a young age.
Yeah.
Was that something always like inherent, or?
Apparently it's been something that like I've had an interest in music since before I can remember. At around I think age 2 or 3, I had I think my dad gave me this little Casio keyboard, an SK1 sampler keyboard, and just to play with. And I started playing melodies that I was hearing on TV. And
How old were you?
Just transcribed. I was like, I think 2 or 3. I'm not sure.
What?
Yeah, and
Do you have recordings of this, or your parents?
I think they filmed a lot of stuff when I was younger, though I have not seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it, so it's very possible. But yeah, I mean that was kind of their indication that like I had a musical inclination.
Wow.
And so they enrolled me in piano lessons like a year after. I think I was 3 or I was 4 when I started doing piano lessons, and then I did that weekly classical training for 9 years. Yeah, 9 years.
Wow.
Until I was 13.
That's crazy. And then when you're 13, is that when you started listening to EDM or electronic music, or when was that?
That was about the same time. Quite a bit of stuff happened, musically speaking. There's a lot of things that overlapped. I think when I was around like 7 or 8, I first actually like heard electronic music. My cousin he was 2 years older than me, so I always looked up to him for like cool stuff and knowing what's hip. And he came over with a CD that he burned full of like just a bunch of different songs, and Sandstorm was on that CD, and I heard that for the first time.
It's classic.
And I just got this rush. I just got this feeling like I don't know what this is, but I love it, and yeah, I want to hear more of this. And I didn't have really access to the internet at the time until actually I was like around 12 or 13. Then I was able to discover what that was, and then I started getting into like let's see. I'm trying to think of some other songs. When I first was able to like have access to the internet and music, I remember, I think one of the first things that I downloaded, yes, actually it was the same cousin.
The same cousin.
He introduced me to LimeWire.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the ability to, that's where we get music from.
Yeah.
And so he showed me some music, and another one of the songs that really hit home was Every Time We Touch by Cascada.
Yeah.
And it was the same feeling again. I was like, okay, now I finally actually have like a name and an artist to this. And so I started looking deeper into the Cascada group and who the producer was behind that, and his other side projects, which ended up turns out it's all like the same guy. Manian is his name.
Yeah.
And he kind of pioneered this sound, this like what was called hands up trance, or like Eurodance.
Yeah.
And that was something that I wanted to make. Like that was something that really, like, I was really drawn towards that. And like I introduced it to some of my friends and stuff, and some of them liked it. Most of them did not, or just didn't really understand it.
Back then, I felt like it wasn't really a thing yet.
It wasn't. There was no music scene that I even could conceive of. I had no idea that this was anything that was like a thing in America, for the very least. But I knew that I wanted to make that. and I knew that I wanted to be a part of, like I knew that I wanted to play shows and be a part of that culture.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what that was or what that was like. But I just pretty much just was guided by that feeling and my intuition.
Wow.
With that. So when I was 13 was when I started to make that kind of music with GarageBand, which is very limited. But
back in the day.
back in the day. Before then, I was actually writing music on the computer. I started out when I was 9. Had this little program called Easy Beat. It was just a MIDI sequencer, and that's kind of where I was able to transition from, so being classically trained in piano, I had the musical foundation.
Yeah.
And the ear for it, and so this was kind of my opportunity to experiment and create things that I hear in my head, transcribe them onto like a piano roll and sequence them out onto the computer. So I kind of got my footing with composing with the computer.
I see.
At around that time when I was around 9.
Wow.
And so then once I had like better software like GarageBand where I can actually manipulate audio a little bit better, it kind of came naturally. The compositional aspect of that kind of came naturally.
Wow.
About a year after that, I discovered Logic, and my parents, I convinced my parents to get me like the Logic Pro, which is like the professional version of GarageBand.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they I'm super grateful. My parents have been really supportive with this whole thing.
Oh wow. Are your parents in the creative field at all?
Yeah. So they're both artists.
Oh, okay.
My dad is a painter, an illustrator, and a children's book author.
Oh, cool.
He also writes music and plays music. He introduced me to he sang and played bass guitar in a band back in the 80s, and so he kind of introduced me to like the bass guitar and the more of the other. He was probably the other styles of music. He was probably the most influential musically early on in my life. Like I listened to a lot of classical and jazz growing up. While he would be painting in his studio, I'd go in and just like sit in, and there's some times where I would paint with him too. And he would be listening to like John Coltrane and then like Mozart and just
the classics.
A lot of just like a really broad spectrum of music. And for me, that was really all I knew.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, everybody listens to all of these different kinds of music. I find out later that that's not really the case. Like, it's actually quite limited for like a lot of kids my age are not exposed to that much music. So music has always been a thing in my life. It's always been a thing that I'm hearing in my head, whether I like it or not. Sometimes it's annoying.
When did you start taking music more seriously, like full time? Did you go to college for music?
So I did. I went to school for 1 year. I took 2 semesters, and I went to school for music production and recording technology. That was the major that I was in, and I was minoring in jazz and classical double bass performance. But so I went to college for 1 year, and I took a leave of absence because honestly there was a lot of stuff happening at that time. That was the same year that I had my first official record label release, and that was 2012. Yeah, January 2012 was when this happened, and I got an offer to play a show in Baltimore, I think, or like the surrounding area. And after that, I realized that I think this is a narrow window for me to actually have the opportunity to pursue this and put all of my energy into this while I can. So I took a leave of absence for 1 year. I said I'm going to give myself 1 year to convince my parents to accept that proposal. And so I did that, and a whole lot of stuff happened. I got a whole bunch of label releases and recognition from blogs and other bigger artists. Like I released 2. Actually, I had Excision Excision's manager reach out to me asking if I am interested in releasing on his label at the time, which was called Rotten Recordings. And so I released 2 on there, and that got heard by some pretty huge blogs at the time, like dubstep.net. And then through that's when Monstercat found me. Yeah. And so apparently they had an eye on me for quite a bit of time, and it wasn't until early 2013 or actually I think it was late 2012 that they had me on board.
Oh wow.
And that's when life changed, like a lot, because that's when it was, we're talking like thousands and thousands of plays and some substantial royalties, like actually enough for me to eventually move out of my parents' house.
Yeah. And then when did you move to Colorado? Was that after that?
That wasn't immediately after. No. I moved out to California temporarily back in 2015. This was after my first tour with Infected Mushroom. And while I was in Cali, I think it was January 2016, I got the offer to open for Liquid Stranger on The Rise of Okan tour. And that is when we did 48 shows in 2 months.
Jeez.
In a van, driving around the country. How
was that?
Honestly, like, it was incredible, and it was because I got to explore and chill with friends and got to see the country and just so much music all the time. Halfway through the tour, I was kind of dead. Like, internally, I was like, I cannot. I'm just going through the motions of this, and I'm completely burnt out.
Yeah.
So it was really rough, but one of the saving graces was like being able to stop in Denver and Boulder for a few days and to actually take a break, because we were playing shows there. Took a break there, and it was funny. A lot of people there, and also the people that I was with, were saying stuff like, "You seem like you're from here." Like, my vibe apparently is very similar to someone that's a native of Denver. I don't really know what that means, but like, it felt more like home than home.
Yeah.
And so after that tour, that's when I decided to move. So that was mid 2016.
And what are some of the challenges you faced throughout all of this, and building your brand and your career?
Wow. So some of the challenges and stuff that I faced just throughout all this. I mean, one of the main ones that's kind of reoccurring is just the whole identity thing. Like, I love making a ton of music, a ton of different kinds of music, and the whole pressure
bunch of genres.
A whole bunch of genres, because I love everything, and I get really into one thing, or one thing, and then once I'm done with that, into something completely different.
Yeah.
So I think one of the toughest things for me is like figuring out, like, what am I, like, who am I in all of this? I feel like a chameleon a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And on one end, it's great to be able to do that and just freely explore that, but on the other end, there is so much pressure if you're going to be like in the industry, so to speak. There is so much pressure to, okay, what is my sales pitch? Like, in 5 seconds, or in like 2 words, like, how can I describe the entirety of the multi-dimensional artistic me? And that's something that's really difficult to do. Luckily, I feel like I kind of ran into like the right opportunities at the right time to kind of, like, for instance, like dubstep. That was a thing that I started dabbling with right when it became like a buzzword in the music realm. Yeah. And initially I started doing it just for fun, but I realized that it's something that is, like, I started doing it as a joke. I realized that I kind of enjoyed doing it, and that it was getting a lot of traction. So things like that, like, there were a lot of opportunities for me to kind of capitalize on and kind of leverage to kind of spring me forward. Yeah. And eventually be able to have more of a substantial enough platform, a strong enough foundation for me to kind of do whatever I want to here and there. But even still, like, it's still a very real struggle to figure out, like, well, what's the big picture? Who am I? Yeah.
It's getting so existential right now.
It is. But that's throughout all of this, like, just consistently doing that over the past decade of making music is, like, it's been a very slow and steady, slow but steady, I should say, process. Growing my career.
Yeah.
And I think the fan base that I have is very diverse and also deep as well. Like, I think they are very loyal, and I really appreciate that.
The fan questions coming up in a different episode is gonna be fun.
Cool.
And what is up and coming for you?
Well, currently, as of this time, I don't know, because there's always stuff. Currently, this time, I mean, next week I'm actually going to be starting a tour with Chime. We're doing a co-headlining tour that's called The Other Side. It's going to be spanning almost about 3 months, and yeah, around the States. It's gonna be a blast. So that's one big thing that I'm looking forward to, like finally having like a really substantial headlining tour. And then, I mean, as far as other things go, this past year has been I'm kind of like taking a step back. Back in 2020, I released, I think, like 20 or so songs throughout the entire year. Because I was just making so much music at the time. But now, I don't know, I'm kind of just taking it easy, trying to focus on other aspects of my life and kind of making sure everything is, you know, in place and right. I do have a second album and a big, I don't want to reveal too much, but something that I've been working on that is really big and substantial related to that. And I don't know when that is actually going to be a thing. It could be the end of the year, it could be next year, it could be the year after that.
So don't look forward to anything yet, but look forward for something in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm still going to be releasing more music, like singles and whatnot. There's still stuff like that that's going to be coming out, but as far as like the big picture stuff, yeah, I would just be patient.
Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years?
That's the biggest question yet. I would say, honestly, I really do not know. This is kind of a turning point in my life, and I feel like this next big project that I do is going to determine a lot of the course of the rest of my career.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. Probably.
Okay, so stay tuned. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we just gotta play it by ear sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any advice for any up and coming producers?
Yeah, I do. I think this is always a tough thing for me because I don't want to say anything too certainly, because I think there are a lot of producers that get into doing music for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't think any one is more or less valid than the other. Such as, for instance, like some people just want to, they have a vision, they just want to create it, and they just want to share it with people.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they want to make a career out of it, but sometimes not, and sometimes they just want it to be something that makes them famous or gets them a lot of money without actually
caring about the art.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have self-honesty when it comes to that, because if you're surrounded by people that really are passionate about it, and you look up to these people that are passionate about it, and you are kind of getting into that, it's not really something that you've necessarily like been exploring for many years.
Yeah.
You can kind of trick yourself into thinking that is actually what you're passionate about, when really you're just influenced by other people that are passionate about it, and how that excites you and how that makes you feel. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's important to really ask yourself, are you, like, if no one is going to if no one would ever listen to anything that you ever make, would you still make it? And would it still sound the same kind of thing? You know? So,
yeah. Who do you make music for? Is it for yourself or for the audience type of thing?
So...
No, I meant that's what you're like referring to.
That is what I'm referring to, yeah. I do want to kind of expound on that. I feel like making music for just an audience is kind of like, it's the same thing with personality. It's like, you can put on a facade that appeals to, you know, as many people as possible, and that's not ultimately you. And it seems like it's a good idea because, you know, you get everyone's attention and it feels good in the moment, but like years down the line, you lose yourself in the process.
I see, yeah.
And same thing, it's like if you're making art that you are not really into and that doesn't like feed your soul, if you didn't have any of that social validation, is that the kind of music that you would still be wanting to make?
Yeah,
you know?
it's a lot to think about.
So I think making music for yourself, but with the intent for it to be communicated. I think that's the key here, because you can make music for yourself and it be something that is completely just chaotic and or like alien and abstract, something that is not understandable from anyone else. Yeah. And I think there is it's nuanced, because I think you can kind of get caught up in, okay, people don't like, some people just don't understand the kind of music that I'm making. And that's fine and everything, but also the self-honesty thing is like, are you inhibiting yourself from growing because you are stuck on making something that is so esoteric and weird that that no one really understands or really likes? And that's not to say don't get experimental. For sure, do that. But I think the whole point of art in general is to really communicate something. I'm not saying make music for an audience. Make music as if there is an audience that is seeking your music. Yeah. Something that is intended to be communicated, but is genuine and unique to you.
Yeah, got it. Wow, that's deep. I never really thought of it that way, but hearing it from you, it just brings like a whole new perspective in my eyes.
Nice.
I do have one last question for you before we get into the fan questions.
Yeah.
What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for. I want to be remembered for.
You can think about it.
I want to be remembered for making music that makes people feel alive and inspired and motivated. And I like the idea that I kind of think that like there is always something new and novel and creative and amazing to be discovered right at arm's reach. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't seem like there's anything there, but sometimes you just gotta reach out and find out for yourself. Like there's always something right around the corner that is next level. Yeah. And that really excites me. And when people hear my music, I hope that kind of sparks that realization in them. That's what I would want to be remembered by. Like, yeah. Cool.
Well, thank you for jumping on Sidewalk Talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Today, and we will see you. Stay tuned. Sorry, not we will see. Stay tuned for the fan questions coming out soon. Bye, guys.
Peace.